that you need. Every little thing you think that you need. Every little thing that's just feeding your greed. Oh, I bet that you'd be fine without it.
Hey everybody, just a quick note before we get started here. This is a little bonus episode. When we were in Portland, Oregon last week, we had the opportunity to stop by PRI. They have a live radio show once a month. They do it in front of a studio audience, which was really cool. It's Public Radio International. The show is called LiveWire, and what you're about to hear is our segment that we had on there. They had us play a little game where they brought some stuff up, and we had to convince them to either get rid of the thing or hold on to the thing, but we also gave some background on our story, had a good conversation with all the folks over there at LiveWire. Before you jump in real quick, today is the day we are announcing the second leg of the Less Is Now tour. We're coming to a city near you. We're in the middle of this tour right now, and we just announced the second leg. So you can find all these cities and dates over at lessisnow.com. We're headed to Toronto, Ottawa, Montreal, Vancouver, Calgary, Edmonton, Philadelphia. We've got a couple stops in New York, Manhattan and Brooklyn. And then Salt Lake City, Denver, Phoenix, Austin, Dallas, Houston, Nashville, Washington, D.C., Atlanta, Tampa, Detroit, and Milwaukee. That's the entire second leg of the Less Is Now tour. But we still have some cities left in the first leg of the tour as well. We'll be in Grand Rapids, Chicago, Madison, Minneapolis, San Diego, Los Angeles. That one's about to sell out, but you can still get tickets. San Francisco, Indianapolis, Cincinnati, Columbus, and Cleveland. A lot of these events we've already had have sold out. Many of these will, so you may want to grab your tickets sooner than later. We can't be responsible if you don't get the tickets in time. That's really up to you. But I know if you're anything like Ryan, you might want to wait until the last day. I just want to let you know that the last day might be too late. But we're really looking forward to seeing you on the road. We've been having a blast at these events. The whole team is there. Podcast Sean, Jess, who helps out with our social media. In fact, we just sang happy birthday to Podcast Sean last time we were in Portland, Oregon, and had a blast doing that. We'll eventually get that podcast out as well. But looking forward to seeing you on the road. Until then, enjoy this bonus edition of the Minimalist Podcast. This is us on LiveWire on Public Radio International.
Our first guests have taken cutting the crap to an entirely different level. Through their podcast and books and blog, Joshua Fields Milburn and Ryan Nicodemus, better known as the Minimalists, have preached the gospel of decluttering to millions. And they're not just talking about physical stuff. They also talk about the emotional junk that so many of us are carrying around. And it's knowledge that's hard-won from their own lives, as we're about to learn. Please welcome the Minimalists to LiveWire. Hugging is such a big part of what the Minimalists do, I'm learning.
They're free and transferable.
Joshua and Ryan, welcome to LiveWire.
Hey, thanks for having us.
All right. Is the whole interview going to be in stereo?
Yes.
Wow. You guys spend a lot of time together.
Man, we even finish each other's sandwiches.
You guys might want to download some podcasts in the car and listen to those or something to pass the time, because you're melding into the same person with all those hours on the road together.
Man, we've known each other since we were fat little fifth graders. And it was like at the lonely lunch table. We met over.
This was in Ohio?
Yeah, Dayton, Ohio. And born and raised. We live in Montana now. But we've known each other. Yeah,
sure.
There's one Montana.
Montana, the Ohio of the West. I don't think anybody says that, but...
Thank you.
Sure. Joshua, let's start with you, because my understanding is that this whole minimalist thing that you two are involved in kind of got started with you. What did your life look like back in around 2011, kind of before things started to change for you?
Yeah, so for me, I'm 35 now, but when I was, say, 27, 28, I was was sort of living the American dream. It was after actually growing up poor in Dayton, Ohio. I was raised by an alcoholic single mother. We were on food stamps and government assistance. And I thought the reason we were so unhappy is because we didn't have a lot of money, right? And so when I turned 18, I went out and got a corporate job, and I spent the next decade climbing the corporate ladder. And really by age 27, 28, I had achieved everything I ever wanted. That six-figure salary, the luxury cars, the closets full of designer clothes, the big suburban house with more toilets than people. I really had all this stuff.
I need that, but that's a medical thing. We'll get into that later.
Well, and so I was sort of living the American dream, right? But then my mom died and my marriage ended, both in the same month. And
you're how old at this point?
I was 28. It was 2009, October 2009. And those two events forced me to sort of look around and start to question what had become my life's focus. And what I realized is I was so focused on so-called success and achievement, and especially on the accumulation of stuff. And I realized that, yeah, I might have been living the American dream, but it wasn't my dream. And it's sort of, for me, it took getting everything I thought I wanted to realize that maybe everything I ever wanted wasn't actually what I wanted at all. And that's really when I discovered this thing called minimalism.
And did you basically just start looking at blogs or go online? I mean, how does minimalism enter your consciousness in Dayton, Ohio?
Twitter. No, seriously, I saw, so this was November 2009. I didn't do this whole social media thing, but I signed up for Twitter and Facebook and MySpace all on the same day.
Wow. And you couldn't get on Friendster?
I'm still trying.
Yeah.
But no, and so I saw this video of a guy named Colin Wright. He was this 24-year-old entrepreneur, and everything he owned fit in his backpack. And I thought that was kind of cool, but it seemed really extreme to me. But then I discovered there were other minimalists. There were people like Leo and Eva Babalta, and they have 6 kids, and so they're like minimalists except with the whole kids thing.
Yeah.
And there were minimalists everywhere in between, and I realized if I wanted to simplify my life, I'd have to find out what my own recipe was. So I sort of tweezed ingredients from each of these different minimalist recipes and created my own intentional life based on what I was seeing in these other people.
And so then, Ryan, how did you start to notice that something was different with your old pal, Joshua?
Well, we were working at the same corporation, side by side, climbing the corporate ladder together throughout our 20s. And I remember when he split up with his wife, I was helping him move into his new place. And there was like this really awesome wall mount that was already there for a TV. And this was in the corporate world, we were always comparing who had the latest TV technology, how big was the TV, how many TVs did we have? I mean, it was like this.
What would Freud say about this?
And yeah, I remember seeing that. I'm like, dude, what kind of TV are you gonna get? And he was like, I don't know if I am gonna get a TV. And I was like, what? Okay. He's like, yeah, maybe. A couple months go by, no TV still. And I didn't really question him on that. I just, accepted the fact that he wasn't going to get a TV. And then I remember him doing things like, so our boss, he basically was always calling us for sales numbers, and especially during the holiday season. I mean, we worked in retail. That was the busiest season of the year. So it's like Christmas Eve. Josh is out with his partner at the time. And he was telling me this story about how our boss was calling him, and he's like, our boss is calling me, and I'm out to dinner with my girlfriend, and I kept ignoring his call. He kept calling me, and finally I picked it up, and I'm like, and Josh was like, hey man, what can I help you with? And he was like, where are your stores at? How much have you sold today?
On Christmas Eve.
On Christmas Eve.
This is some Charles Dickens crap.
Yeah, I mean, it's 6 p.m., and Josh was like, this is an unreasonable expectation you're setting right now. And that was sacrilegious in our world. So, I started noticing these little changes, and I noticed Josh being happier. He was nicer. He seemed a little freer. And eventually I sat him down, and I'm like, dude, why the hell are you so happy? What is going on with you? And I thought maybe the doctor gave him some good drugs or something. And I was like, I wanted some. I'm like, is it Prozac? What are you on, man? And he was like, no, it's not like that at all. He spent 20 minutes telling me about this thing called minimalism. He talked about how he spent the last several months of his life just simplifying, getting the clutter out of the way. And then it started to make sense a little bit. And then he introduced me to the people that he just talked about, Colin and Leo, and there were a couple other folks. And I was a pretty big problem-solving guy. And when I noticed like this community of happy people, I saw how it was working for Josh. I'm like, all right, dude, I want to do this. I want to be a minimalist. Now what do I do?
Well, I think that's the question a lot of people probably have. We're talking to Ryan Nicodemus and Joshua Fields Milburn, also known as the Minimalists. What were the first thing, Ryan? Like, what did you get rid of first?
So I didn't want to spend several months simplifying my life like Josh had. I mean, that was great for him, but I needed faster results. So we came up with a crazy idea called a packing party, where we decided to pack all my belongings as if I were moving, and then I would unpack only the items I needed over the next few weeks. So Josh came over, literally helped me box up everything: my clothes, my kitchenware, my towels, my TVs, my electronics, my frame photographs and paintings, my toiletries, I mean, even my furniture, everything. We literally pretended like I was moving. So
my friends would get like 12 minutes into this experiment and be like, we'll be at the bar if you need us. This is a good friend who actually went through the process of actually doing this.
Yeah, it took about 9 hours and a couple pizza deliveries.
Sure.
And I probably drank like a 6-pack through the whole thing. But it was crazy, man. I remember like the first kind of revelation moment I had is like Josh left, and I've got, my second living room filled with all these boxes. And, they're stacked halfway to my 12-foot ceiling. And I'm kind of looking at it like, wow, here are all these things I've brought into my life over the last decade, like just sitting here in this room. So that was kind of like my first kind of, surreal moment, I guess. And then I spent the next 21 days unpacking only the items I needed: my toothbrush, bed sheets, some clothes for work, some kitchenware.
I feel like you could have left the toothbrush out.
Yeah.
No matter how minimal you are, even just for the sake of the people who love you.
Yeah.
I don't think we're minimizing away from dental hygiene.
For me, I really have to do something drastic to change my state.
Gotcha.
And the more I can change my state, the more it will actually have an impact on my life. So, I went through this whole process, and after those 3 weeks, I had 80% of my stuff still sitting in those boxes, like just sitting there, unaccessed. And I looked at those. I couldn't even. I looked at those boxes. I couldn't even remember what was in half of them. And I was thinking to myself, like, this is a pretty cool experiment. Like, if we shared this, with people, like maybe they would get some value out of it. And Josh had some, cool insights and stories. And I was like, maybe people would get value out of our story. So we did what any two 30-year-old dudes would do. We started a blog.
Yes, the first blog in the history of the internet.
Yes.
Wait, no, it's not that. Wait, we do have to take a very quick break. We have the Minimalists here. We have Ryan Nicodemus and Joshua Fields Milburn. This is LiveWire Radio from PRI. We will be back in just a moment. Welcome back to LiveWire Radio from PRI. My name is Luke Burbank. I'm here talking to the Minimalists. Our theme this week is Cut the Crap, which is something that is kind of their specialty through their podcast and blog and a documentary film that they made about really trying to focus on the important things in life. If you have like a 1 or 2 sentence description of what the Minimalist ethos is about, Joshua, what would that be?
Minimalism is the thing that gets us past the things so we can make room for life's most important things, which actually aren't things at all.
What's the science behind why more stuff doesn't make us more happy?
Well, did you know the average American household has more than 300,000 items in it? 300,000!
Does that include dust mites?
If we have 300,000 items, I think most of us aren't hoarders, right? We're not candidates for the TV show, but we just hold on to a lot of stuff. And I think the reason being is we hold on to like this lifetime of collected memories. And we hold on to all of these things just in case. The 3 most dangerous words in the English language. And so I really think it comes down to we hold on to these things because we feel like that's what we're supposed to do, or we're going to need these things someday in some non-existent hypothetical future. That's the first side. The other side is a bit more pernicious, and it is we buy a bunch of things with money we don't have to impress people we don't like.
Well, when you say it that way, it doesn't seem like such a great plan. If I went into, Ryan, if I went into your house, what would I see? Like, what's in there? What does a minimalist's house actually look like?
Man, Luke, I wish I had like a really sexy answer for you, man. If you walked into my home, you would see I've got a couple paintings on the wall.
Oh yeah, that's sexy.
I've got
I'm hearing
washer
you.
and a dryer. At the end of the day, like if you were to walk into me and my partner's home, like you wouldn't jump up and say, "Oh my God, there must be minimalists that live here." You'd probably be like, "Man, whoever lives here, they're pretty tidy." And it's because, everything I own, it serves a purpose or it adds value to my life. It brings me joy. And at the end of the day, everything else I've gotten rid of. And when you do that, there's these beautiful side effects. Like you've got a nice, tidy home. You consume less, so you have less waste. I'm able to, move on a dime. Like if I really had to pick up and move everything, it wouldn't take that long for me to pack everything up. So, I don't have just stark white walls. It's not like I don't believe in couches, or I sleep on the floor. And there are some minimalists who do that, and they get a lot of value out of that, of sleeping on the floor. And there are people who argue that there's some health benefits to that. But, I think that's the beautiful thing about minimalism is there isn't this one particular recipe you have to follow. It's more about just making sure that the things you have in your life, that you're bringing those things in deliberately. And it really just makes it easier for a simple life. Now, I don't want people to confuse a simple life with an easy life, because I'll tell you, man, simple is not always necessarily easy.
Well, yeah, because I was watching the documentary that you guys are a part of. I was listening to the podcast this week. You have books that are out. You're on this tour. It seems like your life is maybe more complicated now as professional minimalist than it was when you just worked in corporate America trying to sell cell phones to children.
I'll tell you, when you call yourselves the minimalists, everything you do is steeped in irony. Right.
But I mean, are your lives, because of the success of the blog and all the projects, you guys are raising money to build a video studio now so you can do more video projects. Have you been so successful that your lives are not able to be as focused on the stuff that you started out wanting to focus on?
I think the difference now is my short-term actions align with my long-term values. If you would have looked at me during my Lotus eating 20s, I wouldn't have been able to identify what my values were, let alone align my daily actions with those values. And so now it's not necessarily about being happier. In fact, I think chasing happiness was really the problem for me. I was constantly chasing this thing called happiness, but now I'm living a more meaningful life. And the beautiful thing about that is happiness is a byproduct of that.
I noticed that you're wearing a jacket, I think, Joshua, that you're also wearing in the documentary. Is that right?
It might be right, yeah.
I think it's extremely similar. Because you're leaving the house to go on this road trip with Ryan, and you're like, oh, I need a jacket, and it looks very similar. Do you own one jacket? And how did you decide what the jacket was going to be? Because it's a lot of pressure if you have one of a certain kind of garment.
Look, I'm not against consumption, right? I don't think consumption is the problem. I think we all need some stuff. I think the problem is compulsory consumption. So I used to own 12 Brooks Brothers suits. I own 70 Brooks Brothers shirts. You got to work really freaking hard to wear 70 shirts in 1 month, in 2 months, right? And so now, I don't own a whole lot of stuff, but everything that I own, all of my belongings, my clothes, my car, my kitchenware, my furniture, it has a function. Or it brings me joy in some way, if it's artwork or music or something like that. And so the cool thing about this is, as my life changes, the things that add value to my life will also change. So I'm 35 now, I have a 3-year-old, and so my life looks different now than, say, when I was 28, when I first embraced minimalism. And so just because I bring something into my life, like a jacket, doesn't mean I'm always going to hold on to it, because if I'm no longer getting value from it, I have to be willing to let go. I have to walk away from it so I can fill my life with things that do add value.
What would be step one for somebody who's listening to this right now who finds what you're talking about appealing? Like, where can they start?
I think it starts with a question, really. You have to ask yourself, how might my life be better with less? And I think by answering that question, we identify the purpose of minimalism. It's not just the how-to side of things, it's the more important why-to side of things. And once we identify that, like, how might your life be better with less? For me, it was starting with finances, because I made really good money in the corporate world, but I spent even better money.
Yeah.
And that equation just doesn't work. So I had massive amounts of debt. I had 6 figures worth of debt, $500,000 if you count my mortgage. And I was just drowning in it. But I was also unhealthy. I weighed 80 pounds more than I weigh now. My relationships were in shambles. I wasn't creating what I wanted to create. I wasn't contributing to the community around me. And I found out that if I got rid of the things that I was focused on the wrong stuff, though I could focus on the benefits, my health, my passions, my creativity, but only if I aligned today's actions with those values.
That is Joshua Fields Milburn. He's here with Ryan Nicodemus, and they are the Minimalists, everybody. You're on LiveWire Radio. All right, Joshua and Ryan, you teach people how to make space in their lives for the things that really matter, but the two of you don't always agree on what is and isn't a keeper, right, when it comes to physical stuff. So we thought that we would savagely pit you two against each other to weigh in on some real life items from our lives as a radio show staff. So what we're going to do is we're going to show you some things that are real objects that we own, and then one of you is going to make the argument for keeping it, and one of you is going to make the argument for getting rid of it. It's a little segment we're calling Should It Stay or Should It Go Now? LiveWire House Band, ladies and gentlemen. All right, so I'm going to kick things off, and this is a slightly visual for the radio, but I will describe it for the people out there listening to us and not able to see what we're doing. I hold in my hand a very gaudy gold Reebok Pump basketball shoe.
Hey, Luke, 1985 called. They want their shoes back.
All right. You haven't even learned if you're supposed to be arguing for or against this, Ryan. So slow your roll.
Is this your shoe?
This is my shoe. I brought this shoe from my house. I have both of them, by the way. But they're kind of clunky, so I only brought one with me to sort of illustrate the point. Now let me tell you the story briefly behind my acquisition of this Reebok Pump basketball shoe. When I was a kid and the Reebok Pump came out, it was like $200, which I think was about 50% of what my dad made per month. So there would be no Reebok pumping in the Burbank household. And then when I grew up, one time I went into Fred Siegel in Los Angeles about 10 years ago, and what did I see? A Reebok Pump basketball shoe that I could afford. I mean, that's, let's be honest, debatable if it was a good financial decision. But I was able to acquire this thing that I had wanted as a child, and it meant something to me about what my adult life had come to, I guess, or had added up to. I will also mention I have never worn these shoes outside of the house because they are ridiculous looking. Should it stay or should it go now? Joshua, argue for why it should go.
I mean, you've already made the argument for why they should go, right? I've never worn them. It sounds to me like you essentially get no value from them.
Well, sometimes I look at them and I realize I'm not as poor as I would when I was a kid. Is that value?
Do you require a sneaker to realize that?
You have clearly not met me, Joshua.
And here's the other thing. Like, if you were actually, I can tell right now just by talking to you, you're not having any trouble letting go of this thing. But if you were having trouble letting go of it, what I would encourage you to do, if you did want to get rid of it, you said, this is not adding any value to my life, it's just getting in the way, it's taking up space, it's weighing on my mind. First, getting rid of it's going to take that weight off your shoulders, but you're not going to experience lasting contentment just by getting rid of a pair of Reebok pumps. But if for some reason it's a sentimental item and you're like, I still want to get rid of it, you can take a picture of it. Because the memories that we have aren't in our things. The memories are inside us. But sometimes the things we have can trigger those memories. So quite often before I get rid of something, I'll take a photo of it and then I'll let it go.
All right, Ryan, you have the task of explaining why I should hang on to this pair of Reebok pump basketball shoes that I don't wear.
Oh man, if you are someone who likes to take up space for no reason, if you are someone who loves living in the past and can't live in the present,
I don't feel like your heart's in this, Ryan.
I think you should absolutely keep them in those cases.
All right, sold. I'll keep it. Listen, I'm working my way up to where you guys are at, okay? We have the Minimalists here, and next up we have our producer and editor of our show, Laura Patton, coming to the stage. All right, Laura.
Do we have to guess what it is?
How about we describe what its sort of physical appearance is for the radio listeners? It looks a little bit like a diaper pail, maybe, that would be in a bathroom or something. It's about 3 feet high. It's a cylinder.
I thought it was an electric trash can.
It is. Laura Hatton, what is this thing you've brought on stage that you want to ask the Minimalists about?
It's a towel warmer.
A Brookstone towel warmer. I feel like it's kind of in the name, but will you explain how it works?
Yeah, so before I get into the shower, I put my towel in it and I press a button and it warms it while I'm in the shower. So that when I get out of the shower, it's at the perfect temperature.
Now this sounds like it adds value to your life because it warms you when you get out of the shower. How many times have you bought this particular item?
I received one as a present and I thought it was ridiculous, and then it broke, and then I bought another one.
So this would be your second Brookstone towel warmer that you have owned in your life?
Yes.
Okay. So now we turn to the Minimalists. One of you has to make the argument for why this thing should stay and one why it should go. Ryan, would you like to make the argument as to why this should go?
When's the last time you used it?
This morning.
Oh, checkmate.
No. Does this stress you out at all?
No. When it broke, I was very stressed out.
Yeah. I don't. I might get rid of that just because it's an electrical device, like close to the bathtub and stuff. Maybe it's a safety hazard, so you might want to consider getting rid of it for that reason.
Safety first.
Yes.
Okay. Joshua, what argument can be made for keeping a Brookstone brand towel warmer?
I mean, it's awesome. I mean, here's the thing. Have you ever had a warm towel when you got out of the shower? It's
no.
amazing.
I spent all my money on Reebok pumps.
I was going to say when you jump out of the shower, but never mind.
Yeah.
It didn't land. Here's what I'll say. If you use that every day and you get immense value from it, you shouldn't get rid of it. I don't know why you would even question that. And with anything in my life, actually, that's not true. I encourage you to question it. It's good because now you're making the deliberate decision to hold on to that, and you're going to get more value from it because you know you're using it intentionally.
All right. Compelling argument from Joshua. I have a sense that Laura's going to hold on to that bad boy. All right. And last but not least, we have our announcer, Jason Rouse, who has an item that he's been holding on to for a long time. I don't even know where to begin trying to describe the fresh hell that is on the stage at the Alberta Rose Theater. Jason, will you please describe this very upsetting puppet that you have produced?
This is little Tony St. Clair, and he is a puppet of a very close old friend of mine named Tony St. Clair, who lives in Chicago. And he was made by a friend of mine last year for a show I did, and it has really realistic.
Imagine. Again, I'm just going to try to describe this for folks listening on the radio. It's sort of like a 3-foot tall Michael Myers from Halloween ventriloquism dummy. That Minimalist, would you say that's a somewhat accurate description?
Yeah, that is spot on.
Jason, this was made for a play that you were in.
Yeah.
And it is actually, it's a likeness of a friend of yours.
Yeah. Pretty close. Yeah, he wore this same outfit in the show, and we, the joke was that he was cloned, and this was the clone, and everyone thought that this was the real Tony. It drove real Tony insane. And so now I have it in my apartment.
Where does this ventriloquism doll live in your apartment?
In a very unwieldy box that has to be stored and, taken care of. It's been suggested by my girlfriend that he live just on a shelf overlooking everything, and I've gone ahead and vetoed that.
Yeah.
Look at this. Just try to eat spaghetti while this is watching. Yeah. It's not going to happen.
That thing seems like it would be deeply upsetting to anybody who came over to Rouse Manor.
Yeah.
All right, Minimalist, time to weigh in on Jason Rouse's Michael Myers-esque 3-foot tall ventriloquism dummy, which I should mention is wearing a hoodie for some reason, and jeans and some Velcro sneakers. Okay, Joshua Fields Milburn, what is the argument for getting rid of this?
Do you want to keep it?
Sort of. I do. It was made by a good friend. It's a representation of a very close friend who doesn't live here, but it's a weird puppet of my friend, so.
First off, it's not your friend. We'll be clear about this.
Would it help if I turned his gaze away from you, maybe? I don't want him to look at me, though, either.
He is not going to get rid of me. Don't even try.
Yeah. Actually, you know what? That's a good point. That's not the kind of doll you throw out, because it's coming back for you.
Yeah.
If I've learned anything from horror films.
Yeah. There's an entire Chucky series predicated on this same thing. Here's, I guess, the only other thing that I would say is, it seems to me that you're embarrassed to take it out of its box at home, or either that or terrified to.
Well, I don't want him to I want him to be safe. You know what I mean? And in the box, he's safe. And look at that. Imagine wandering around your house just casually, and no.
I think the issue, by the way, this is one of the times when I think, God, I wish this was a TV show.
Right.
But I think it's just that it's right in that sort of uncanny valley, Jason, if I might weigh it. It's a little too lifelike. It would be better if it was a little bit less real looking. Okay, so let's just get this thing off the stage by moving it to you, Ryan. What is the argument for keeping this nightmare?
Look how adorable that puppet is. Are you a ventriloquist?
No.
Do you have dreams of becoming a ventriloquist?
No.
Oh. Well, I think maybe you should pick up being a ventriloquist and and use this in your act. Again, if you love to take up empty space, God, I'm having a hard time coming up. I would just go with Luke's argument of, if you throw that thing away, it's probably going to come back and haunt you.
All right. So don't do it. Stay safe.
Very good.
All right. Sage advice from Ryan Nicodemus and Joshua Fields Milburn. They are the Minimalists.
thing you think that you need, every little thing you think that you need, every little thing that's just feeding your greed. Oh, I bet that you'd be fine without it. Every little thing that you gotta have, every little thing that you gotta have, you gotta reach for and you gotta grab. Oh, I bet that you'd be fine without it. So tear your eyes away, or tear your